I've always been the kind of person who likes hiking alone. Some people find it weird, but for me, it's peaceful. I work a pretty stressful job, and being out in nature, just me, the trees, and the night sky was like therapy. One weekend last fall, I decided to go out for a late-night hike. My friends thought I was insane for going at night, but I knew the trail like the back of my hand. It wasn't too far from my house, maybe a 15-minute drive, and it looped around a wooded area with a small lake in the middle. That night was colder than usual. I grabbed a hoodie, packed a flashlight, and took my car out there around 11:30 p.m. By the time I parked and started on the trail, it was nearly midnight. The first 15 minutes were exactly what I needed. Quiet, just the crunch of leaves under my boots and the occasional sound of an owl in the distance. I didn't see another soul out there. But then I noticed something odd. When I reached a bend in the trail that curved around the lake, I heard the sound of branches snapping behind me. At first I brushed it off as an animal, maybe a deer or raccoon. But when I turned with my flashlight, I swore I saw someone standing way back on the trail, just far enough that the light didn't fully reach them. I froze for a moment, thinking maybe I imagined it, but no, the figure was real. A man standing perfectly still, facing in my direction. I called out, "Hey, you good?" My voice sounded nervous, even to me. No response. I wasn't immediately scared because it could have been another hiker, but something about how he was just standing there, not moving or saying anything, sent a chill through me. So I turned and kept walking. I sped up a little, not wanting to make it obvious. About 5 minutes later, I heard it again, crunching leaves, footsteps. Someone was following me. I shined my flashlight behind me again, and sure enough, the same man was there, closer this time. I could make out that he was wearing a dark jacket and jeans. His face, I couldn't see it clearly, but it looked pale in the beam of my light. I shouted this time, "Do you need something, man?" Again, no response. Just silence. At this point, my heart was racing. I turned back around and picked up my pace, almost to a jog. The trail loop wasn't that long, but the fastest way back to my car was the way I came, which meant walking past him. No way in hell I was doing that. So I kept following the loop, hoping I'd make it back to the parking lot before he caught up. But every time I looked back, he was there, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, always at the edge of my flashlight's reach. I can't explain it, but it felt like he was toying with me. At one point, when the trail narrowed through a patch of dense trees, I swear I heard him whisper something. Just one word carried through the night air. "Come." I don't know if he meant "come here" or if I imagined it, but it was enough to make me break into a full sprint. My flashlight bounced wildly as I ran, and the sound of my own breath filled my ears. But under that, I swear I could hear his footsteps pounding the dirt trail behind me. I reached the clearing by the lake where the moonlight lit up the water. That's when I saw him again, standing across the lake, somehow already ahead of me. It didn't make sense. There was no way he could have gotten there before me. He just stood there watching. Then slowly he raised his arm and pointed toward the woods behind him, like he wanted me to follow. Every hair on my body stood on end. I turned and bolted the opposite direction, back toward the parking lot. My legs were burning, my lungs felt like they were on fire, but I didn't stop until I saw the faint glow of the lot lights through the trees. I burst out onto the asphalt, half expecting him to come charging out behind me, but the lot was empty. My car was the only one there. I scrambled inside, locked the doors, and sat there shaking for a good 5 minutes before starting the engine. When I finally pulled out, my headlights swept across the trail entrance. And there he was, standing at the start of the trail, right where the woods began. His face was finally visible now, pale, sunken eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't move, didn't chase, didn't wave, just stood there, staring at me as I drove away. I haven't gone hiking at night since that day, and sometimes, when I pass that trail during daylight, I swear I see someone standing just inside the tree line, watching. I'll never forget the night my car broke down on that empty stretch of highway. It was late, close to 2 a.m., and I was driving home after visiting a friend who lived a couple hours away. The roads were dead quiet, the kind of silence where you almost feel like the last person alive. I was about halfway home when my car started making this weird clicking sound. At first I ignored it, but then the engine just sputtered and died. I coasted to the shoulder and came to a stop right next to this long stretch of woods. I cursed under my breath. Of all places, it had to break down here, miles from the nearest gas station with nothing but trees on both sides of the road. I tried restarting it, but no luck. My phone had 1 bar of service, barely enough to load a map. I debated calling my friend, but he lived too far to come help, so I figured I'd wait it out a bit, maybe see if another car passed by. That was when I saw the first sign that something wasn't right. In the reflection of my side mirror, I thought I saw movement, like someone walking along the tree line. I turned to look, shining my phone's flashlight out the window. Nothing, just trees. I told myself I was being paranoid. It was late, I was tired, and shadows can play tricks on you. About 10 minutes later, though, I heard it. The sound of footsteps on gravel coming from behind my car. Slow, crunch, crunch, crunch. My heart started pounding. I turned again, and that's when I saw him. A man, tall, wearing an oversized coat, his face hidden under the shadow of a hood. He was walking along the shoulder of the road, coming closer to my car. I rolled down my window just a crack and called out nervously, "Hey man, you all right?" He stopped walking, just stood there. Then in this low voice, he said, "Car trouble?" Yeah," I said cautiously. "Won't start." There was a pause. Then he said, "I know a shortcut, but through the woods. Leads to a gas station." I froze. Everything in me screamed that it was a bad idea. First off, I grew up in that area. I knew there wasn't a gas station anywhere close by in those woods. And second, the way he said it. Flat. Almost rehearsed. I forced a polite smile. "Nah, I'll wait here. Someone will come by eventually." The man tilted his head like he didn't understand. Then he took another step closer. "Come with me. I'll show you." That's when I locked my doors. Something about the way he said it. It wasn't a suggestion. It was like an order. He stood there for a long moment, then gave this half smile. His teeth looked off, jagged almost, like something wasn't right about his mouth. I put my phone in my lap, pretending to text, but really I was ready to dial 911 if he tried anything. Then he said something that chilled me to my core. "I've seen you before." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" He just stared. "Walking. In the woods. You like the woods?" I shook my head quickly. "You've got me confused with someone else, man." He didn't argue, just kept smiling that awful, jagged smile. Then slowly he stepped off the shoulder and into the tree line. The darkness swallowed him. For a while I sat there, gripping my steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. I kept glancing at the woods, expecting him to pop back out, and he did. Maybe 5 minutes later, he emerged again, this time farther down the road. He was waving, beckoning, like he really wanted me to follow him. I started honking my horn, hoping the noise would scare him off or get someone's attention, but the highway stayed empty. Finally, I did the only thing I could think of. I tried the ignition again. Miraculously, the engine sputtered, coughed, then roared back to life. I didn't question it. I slammed the car into gear and floored it. As my headlights swept across the man one last time, I swear to God I saw his face clearly. His eyes weren't normal. They looked sunken, almost black, like pits, and that smile hadn't left his face. He didn't chase me. He just stood there, watching as I sped off into the night. I made it home shaking so bad I could barely put my keys in the lock. The next day I drove back with a friend in daylight just to see if there was anything there. There wasn't. No footprints, no sign of anyone living out there, just endless trees. But I'll never forget his words. "I've seen you before." I still don't know what he meant, and I don't ever want to find out. I was about 8 years old when it happened, old enough to remember the details, young enough to not fully understand the danger I was in until years later. Back then, I lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood with my mom and little sister. We weren't rich or anything, but it was safe. Kids played outside until dark, neighbors waved when you passed by, that sort of place. Behind our street, there was a patch of woods that all the kids treated like our playground. My mom didn't love me going in there alone, but as long as I stuck with my friends, she didn't mind. Most of the time, we'd just build forts out of sticks or dare each other to explore deeper into the trees. One summer evening, around 6 p.m., I was in the yard with my best friend Jason. He was the same age as me, a little braver though. He suggested we go into the woods and check out this secret path he claimed he found. We told my mom we'd be back before dark and headed off. The woods were only about 50 yards behind the houses, so it didn't feel far. We followed the dirt path we always used, but after a while, Jason led me down this narrow trail I'd never noticed before. It was quieter there. The kind of quiet where you don't even hear birds, just the crunch of your own footsteps. That's when we saw him. A man, standing by a tree about 20 yards ahead, half hidden in the shadows. He wasn't dressed like a hiker or a jogger. He wore dark slacks, a button-up shirt, and shoes that looked way too clean for the woods. Jason stopped dead in his tracks. Hello? He called. The man tilted his head slowly like he wasn't expecting us. Then he smiled. You boys lost? I remember his voice even now. Calm, too calm. Jason said, No, we're just exploring. The man stepped closer. I know a better path, leads to something cool. Want to see it? I didn't say anything. Something in my gut told me no. Grabbed Jason's arm and whispered, Let's just go back. But the man kept smiling. Come on, it's just a little deeper, I'll show you. He motioned with his hand for us to follow. Jason shifted uncomfortably. Maybe another time. The man's smile faltered, his eyes fixed on me then. Don't you want to see it? He asked. I shook my head. We have to go. My mom's waiting. His smile disappeared completely. For a second, his face looked angry. But just as quick, he forced the smile back on. All right then, maybe next time. We turned and walked quickly back the way we came. I didn't look back until we reached the edge of the woods. When I finally did, he was still there, standing between the trees, watching us. That night, I told my mom. She brushed it off at first, saying maybe it was just another neighbor. But the more I described him, the more her face changed. By the end, she looked scared. She called Jason's parents and told them to keep him out of the woods for a while. A week later, police cars showed up at the end of our street. I overheard my mom talking to an officer. They'd gotten reports of a man matching that description trying to lure kids near the woods in the next town over. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. About a month later, I was playing in our backyard when I noticed movement near the tree line. The same man, standing just inside the shadows, watching me. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just stood there, half hidden, until my mom came outside. Then he turned and disappeared back into the trees. We moved a year later. I never saw him again. But sometimes, when I'm driving and I pass by a stretch of woods, I get this crawling feeling on the back of my neck, like he's still out there waiting for another kid to wander too far